Welcome back to Miles Reads. I'm Miles. Today we're diving into the book Learning to Spend Money. You might find that title a bit funny. Learning to spend money? Who doesn't know how to do that? If you've got too much, I'll gladly help you spend it. But it's not that simple. Spending money is actually a huge challenge. It's like that joke about life's 3 ultimate questions. Where do I come from? Where am I going? And where did all my money go? Bill Gates once said that spending a fortune is just as hard as earning it. The author of this book, Michio Noguchi, believes that most of us are getting it wrong. Noguchi is a heavyweight in the finance world, having worked at top firms like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs in Japan. He noticed that for most people, the idea of spending money is really just about saving money. There's an old saying, you won't go poor from eating or dressing, but you'll be poor for life if you can't manage your budget. The message seems to be that living within your means and being frugal is the right way to handle money. However, the author points out that this is a major misconception. Truly smart spending is about making your money work for you so it grows even as you spend it. And that's what today's book will teach us how to do. To make your money grow as you spend it, you need to understand 3 things. How to separate your 3 wallets, how to master 1 key principle, and how to avoid 2 common traps. Let's break them down one by one. First, let's distinguish between your 3 wallets. We all have 3, and I don't mean the leather kind. I mean your consumption wallet, your investment wallet, and your speculation wallet. Most of our spending falls into one of these 3 categories. The consumption wallet is for daily expenses that satisfy our immediate wants and needs, things like shopping, groceries, and new clothes. The speculation wallet is for long-shot bets. This includes buying lottery tickets, gambling, or even collecting art in the hope that it will appreciate someday. These are all acts of speculation. The third type, the investment wallet, is completely different. Its purpose is to use the money you spend today to earn even more money in the future. Things like buying financial products or starting a business are paid for out of your investment wallet. So why does knowing about these 3 wallets matter? Because a master of money knows the secret. Use your investment wallet often, your consumption wallet moderately, and your speculation wallet rarely, if at all. This is the key to making your money grow. Why shouldn't you use your speculation wallet much? Because the odds of success in speculation are almost impossible to control. Trying to get rich by speculating is a quick way to lose everything. On the other hand, you should use your investment wallet as much as possible because the money in it can generate future returns. The problem is, in our daily lives, we often forget that the money we spend can actually come back to us, and then some. When we spend money, we should always consider whether that outlay will increase in value over time. And investment here doesn't just mean buying stocks or real estate, paying for courses to upgrade your skills, investing in your children's education, or even spending your time listening to this program. Right now, these are all investments that can bring you greater returns in the future. So what about the consumption wallet? The author advises us to spend in moderation. On one hand, enjoying life is important. On the other, excessive consumption weakens our future earning potential. So how do we find that balance? The author offers 2 tips. First, when you spend from your consumption wallet, always aim for true value. Value doesn't mean being cheap, it means spending the same amount of money on something that brings you greater satisfaction. For example, a college student might buy lots of cheap, $10 fast fashion tops, thinking she's saving money while getting to wear new things all the time. But after a while, she'll realize that the satisfaction from 10 cheap items pales in comparison to buying one high-quality, more expensive piece of clothing. The total cost might be similar, but the feeling and practical value of the quality item are far greater. This is learning to spend smarter in your consumption. Second, try to use a portion of the money earned from your investment wallet for your moderate consumption. For example, if your boutique clothing store earns you $100,000 in profit this year, you could take $40,000, $50,000 of that to spend on yourself. This way, you can enjoy the present without hurting your ability to earn more in the future. Use your investment wallet often, your consumption wallet moderately, and avoid your speculation wallet. This should be our fundamental mindset about spending. It's important to note, however, that which wallet a purchase comes from depends less on what you buy and more on the value it ultimately creates. For instance, buying makeup or paying for cosmetic treatments is usually consumption. But there's a joke about three friends who reunite after many years. The first says, "I spent all my money on lottery tickets last year and won $5. The second says, "I invested my money in a storefront and made $100,000. The third says, "I spent all my money last year on makeup and beauty treatments." Normally, the first friend is speculating, the second is investing, and the third is consuming. But then, the third friend smiles and says, "I came today to give you your wedding invitations. I'm marrying a multimillionaire." In that light, the money she spent on her appearance could be considered an investment. Of course, this is just a joke, and we're not advocating for that particular value system. But it clearly illustrates that the nature of an expense is ultimately defined by the value it creates. Now we know that to earn more, we need to use our investment wallet more. But how should we spend the money in it? This brings us to our second topic, the principle for making your money grow only by things that will be worth more in the future. The logic is simple, but the question is, how do we determine the future value of something? The most basic method is to appraise it and convert its value into a present-day cash figure. To an economist, everything has a price so that it can be compared. For example, imagine there are two English language programs. One teaches conversational English for $3,000. The other is a one-on-one business English course that costs a steep $10,000. How do you choose? Most people would base their decision on their budget, a friend's recommendation, or the teacher's reputation. But from an investment perspective, we should calculate how much return this expense will bring us in the future. The investment value of the same thing differs from person to person. Let's say your goal is to get a job at a multinational corporation where you know you can earn a six-figure salary, and English proficiency is the only barrier. In that case, you should absolutely invest the $10,000 in the business English course, because it could unlock an income in the hundreds of thousands. But if you're just an employee who wants to learn some English for traveling abroad, the $3,000 conversational course is probably sufficient. You could estimate the potential losses or extra costs you might incur from language barriers on your trips. If that amount is more than $3,000, the investment is worthwhile. However, this kind of simple estimate isn't enough because it ignores a crucial factor, time. Money in the future is worth less than money today. If I lend you $10,000 now and you pay me back $10,000 in 3 years, it looks like a break-even exchange, but I've actually lost money. Why? First, if I had put that $10,000 in a savings account, I would have earned interest over those 3 years. I've lost that potential gain. Second, inflation erodes the purchasing power of money. $100 might buy 5 bushels of apples today, but only 4 in 3 years. In other words, that $10,000 in 3 years might only be equivalent to $8,000 in today's money. Therefore, when calculating investment returns, you can't just compare future value with present cost. You have to apply a discount to future money. In economics, this is known as the discount rate. This principle seems straightforward, but we often overlook its impact in our daily lives. Suppose your boss tells you that your total salary over the next 4 years will be $1 million, but offers 2 payout plans. Plan A, a gradual increase $100,000 the first year, $200,000 the second, $300,000 the third, and $400,000 the fourth. Plan B, a gradual decrease $400,000 the first year, then $300,000 and so on. Which would you choose? Most people would pick Plan A because the feeling of getting a raise every year is great. But if you understand the discount rate, you'll know that the sooner you get the money, the smaller your loss to discounting. What's more, the money you receive earlier can be invested to generate additional returns. So even if your money is just sitting at home, not being stolen or lost, it's quietly depreciating every day. This is why we must proactively use our investment wallet to make the money we spend today worth more in the future to combat this depreciation. To judge if an expense is worthwhile, besides the discount rate, you also have to consider another factor, the payback period. How long will it take for your investment to pay off? And when it finally does, will it still hold the same meaning for you? For example, if you're 80 years old and someone offers you a chance to invest $100,000 with a guaranteed return of $1 million in 20 years, you'd most likely decline. Very few people live to be 100. The older you get, the less you value money in the distant future. If you try to sell a 5-year investment plan to someone on their deathbed, you might just finish them off. But if you tell a young person they can invest $200,000 now for a $1 million return in 30 years, they'd likely be interested. After all, in 30 years they'll only be in their 50s, and that money will still be very meaningful to them. Beyond age, the passage of time also changes our values and preferences. An investment that seems incredibly valuable today might feel worthless in a few years. A classic example is childhood toys. At 5 or 6, you can't live without them and beg your parents to buy them. By 7 or 8, you look at them and think they're childish and the money spent seems wasted. Or maybe you spend a fortune on a top-of-the-line sound system today, determined to become a pop star. But 2 years from now, your dream changes, and looking at that equipment just makes you wince. That investment is now a failure. So, before you invest, think carefully. Will something that seems extremely valuable now still be just as valuable in a few years? This, then, is the author's principle for spending money. Only buy things that will be worth more in the future, taking into account the discount rate and the way time affects value. But any estimation can be wrong. If you miscalculate, you could lose money. So what do? This brings us to our third and final topic: avoiding two traps. The author argues that our judgment errors usually stem from two sources: probability illusions and flawed decision-making habits. A probability illusion is when our intuition misleads us, causing us to make poor investment choices, even when we can rationally deduce the actual odds. Here's an example. You've spent 10 years chasing your dream of becoming an actor, facing constant rejection. Now, you have another movie audition. You find out the acceptance rate is just 1 in 1,000. Meanwhile, your family has arranged a steady job for you back home, and you need to give them a final answer by next Monday. On Saturday, you get an email from the film studio saying you passed the audition. As you're about to celebrate, you receive a second email explaining that due to a staff error, 1% of applicants received the wrong notification. The correct results won't be announced until next Tuesday. What do? If you wait for the final notification, you'll lose the job back home. If you don't wait, what if you were actually accepted? Your 10-year dream would be lost. Many people would think, there's only a 1% error rate, so I still have a 99% chance of success. I have to bet on my dream. If you think that way, you're likely in for a disappointment. The rational choice is to go home and take the job. Why? Let's do the math. The acceptance rate is 0.1%. Let's say 10,000 people auditioned. That means only 10 people were actually selected. The notification error rate is 1%, which means 100 out of the 10,000 applicants received an incorrect notification. Let's assume all 100 of these were people who were rejected but received an acceptance email by mistake. So, a total of 10 truly accepted plus 100 mistakenly notified equals 110 people received an acceptance email. Of these 110 people, only 10 were genuinely chosen. This means your actual probability of being accepted is only 10/110, which is about 9.1%. The probability of being rejected is a staggering 90.9%. Realizing this might give you a cold sweat. Our intuition often gives us a completely wrong sense of probability. The brain can perform rational calculations, but it's not good at applying probabilistic thinking in everyday life. This is the first reason we might lose money. The second is due to flawed decision-making habits. Sometimes we know the probability of something is low, but we do it anyway. Behavioral economist Daniel Kahneman pointed out that people tend to overreact to low probabilities and underreact to high ones. Everyone knows the probability of a plane crash is far lower than a car accident, yet whenever a plane crash is in the news, the number of air travelers drops sharply. People know driving is more dangerous, but they choose it anyway. In the 3 months following the 9/11 attacks, many Americans chose to drive instead of fly out of fear, which led to an increase of over 1,000 traffic fatalities compared to the same period the previous year. A gambler knows the odds of winning it all back on the final hand are minuscule, but will still bet their life savings. This kind of irrational behavior acting against our better judgment is also common in spending and investing. Research shows that our fear of losing money is far greater than our joy from gaining money. Because of this, we sometimes pass up good opportunities to make money simply out of fear. For instance, a family of modest means has a child who is invited to a prestigious international youth leadership camp, but it costs $10,000. A rational analysis shows this experience would be hugely beneficial for the child's perspective and network, a worthwhile investment. But for the parents, coming up with $10,000 would put a huge strain on the family's finances. Many parents would choose to forego the opportunity, sacrificing a high-return investment for the sake of short-term financial security. So, given that investing is full of probability illusions and judgment errors, how can we minimize our losses and ensure our investments are sound? The author offers two suggestions: a portfolio strategy and an options strategy. The portfolio strategy is the old adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spreading risk across different investment projects is a concept that can be applied to all aspects of life. The second strategy is to use options thinking. Options might sound technical, but we see them everywhere in daily life. The essence of an option is paying a small amount of money to buy the right to make a certain transaction in the future. For example, you're renting an apartment in a competitive market. You agree with the landlord on a rent of $2,000 a month and put down a $200 deposit to hold it. That $200 deposit is an option. It gives you a right. If you find another apartment for just $1,500 a month before signing the lease, you can choose to forfeit the $200 deposit and walk away. You used a small amount of money to buy the right to change your mind, capping your maximum loss. This mindset is crucial. When we are uncertain about the outcome of an investment, we can first spend a small amount to buy the opportunity. If things change or a better choice appears, we can abandon our deposit and pursue the better option, effectively mitigating our investment risk. For example, before starting a new business, you could arrange for an unpaid leave of absence from your current job. This is like buying yourself a fallback plan for if the business fails at almost no cost. Speaking of which, a certain business move serves as a classic example of this kind of thinking. Years ago, the company Reckitt Kaiser, which owned Durex, the world's largest condom brand, acquired Mead Johnson, a massive baby formula manufacturer. This created a perfect risk hedge. In the future, customers would either be buying their condoms or, 10 months later, their baby formula. With a strategy like that, the risk of investment failure is dramatically reduced. Alright, that covers the main ideas from the book Learning to Spend Money. Let's recap. The core message of the book is that by using the right methods, we can make our money grow even as we spend it. To achieve this, we need to, first, distinguish between our three wallets: the consumption wallet, the speculation wallet, and the investment wallet. We should use our investment wallet frequently, use the returns from it for moderate consumption, and avoid speculation as much as possible. Second, master one principle: only buy things that will be worth more in the future. When making judgments, we must not only convert future value into today's dollars, but also consider the discount rate and how the meaning of that value might change for us over time. Third, avoid two traps: probability illusions and flawed decision-making habits. To manage the risks that come from miscalculation, we can use a portfolio strategy to diversify risk. At the same time, we can apply options thinking, paying a little to buy choices, giving ourselves room to change our minds and adapt. By practicing these principles, we can gradually train ourselves to become masters of spending, making our money work for us and grow over time. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.